Welcome back, csc200, to part 3 of our ex13, our contact form. And we don't have a whole lot to do here, so we'll get finished up pretty quickly. This is where we ended up here when we're basically displaying new records from our database, from our PHP MyAdmin managed database. So we can manage them here, but we're displaying them there, and we're inserting them from our index page originally. So that's where we're inserting them. Well, actually, we're submitting a form from our index page, and then they get processed by this PHP page, and that's where they actually get inserted and they get displayed. Two things are happening here. So what we're going to do here, I'll keep this open right now, but we're actually going to make a new page. So just click on that folder and then hit the plus sign and then say new file, and I'm going to call it thank you. And we'll call it thankyou.php because there is going to be PHP in it. We'll call it thankyou.php, and we'll hit OK, and just make sure it's in that folder. And there should be nothing in there right now, but what I am going to do is I'm going to copy everything from display. So we'll go back to display, and I'll copy everything. I'll do a Control A, select everything, go to thank you, and highlight even over this, because they're putting PHP tags there, but I'll paste right over them. So this is my thank you page, and I don't need a lot of stuff here, so I'm just going to say, thank you. I'll put that as like a heading for our page. We might even have a heading where we could put that. Do we have a heading here? Display updated database. We're not going to do that here. We're not going to do that in thank you. So we're going to say thank you for submitting contact info, and we're starting a table here, which we probably don't need. I don't think we're going to put things in a table, so I'm going to take that out. And at the end, I think I'm going to take that out. So I'll take out that table at the bottom. And we're still going to have PHP code, but not a whole lot. We're still going to be going here. So we're still going to have this. We're still going to have our variables. And we're still going to have our connection. Because remember, this is the page that we're really going to be going to after they do this. So we're still going to go here. Now, we're not going to be displaying anything here. So we're actually going to not have to worry too much about the display. We are going to connect, and we are going to insert, and we are going to do all that. So we're going to do all this stuff. New record created successfully. We'll keep that. But this part, select all from contacts, we don't necessarily need to do that. So I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to get rid of all of this, and I'm going to get rid of everything to here. So just so you see what I'm getting rid of, I'm keeping this last else here with the error, new record created successfully, but then starting with the select from contacts where we're basically displaying information, I'm getting rid of that function, and then all these heading things, and even the while loop. I'll get rid of the while loop, and all this kind of stuff down here. I don't need this whole thing with the row count. I'll get rid of that. I'll keep the close down here, and then I don't even think I need this thing with these results, so get rid of that. And I don't think I need this either. So what we're going to be outputting here is going to be very simple. So we don't need any curly braces with any of this stuff. So I'm just going to move this out here so it kind of goes out. So remember these things, the if has 2 curly braces, the else has 2 curly braces, this will have none. So there's no curly braces down here. All we're going to do is output something. So what we have so far is thank you for submitting contact info. And then all I'm going to put in here, and maybe I'll move these things over. All right, now what we're going to do here is, now we have these TRs and things like that, and we're not even going to have that. Matter of fact, I'll backspace one more. I'm actually going to put a P here. And I'll still use these dots, and then I'll just say, this is the info you submitted. So I'll just make it's just a string in there, and I could put these all together, but I'm going to separate it just because it's kind of consistent to what I'm doing as far as these tags. And then I'll put another space, dot space, and I'll put quotes, and I'll do a closing P tag. So that's going to be a paragraph. And then after that paragraph, I'm going to start another paragraph here. And actually, I don't need row, so let me get rid of this. And I'll make this a paragraph, because we'll just start with row first. So they don't need to see the ID name. They just need to see the stuff they submitted. So we're going to have P, and then it's going to say row first, and it's a closing. Actually, we don't have to put a closing P. What I'll do here is just do a BR. and it's still a tag, so it's in your brackets, but I'll just do a BR. That means we'll put line breaks after this. So we have a paragraph, and then it's this text, and that's the closing paragraph. So there'll be like a space. And then this, we're going to start a new paragraph, and it's going to say first, and then it's going to break. And then what we could do here is, and we could fix this to make it look better, but there's a dot row, and I'll just get rid of all of these now. And these things will all have BRs, which are line breaks. So I could copy these and put them in here. And remember, there's no closing line breaks. Line breaks is just a line break, so you don't need any slash in there. So they'll all have line breaks. And then finally, I'll put a closing P here, because that'll be my closing paragraph. I'll get rid of this, and then it should finish off with a semicolon. So make sure you finish it off with a semicolon. So let me just look at this again. So we're starting our echo statement, and anything text-wise should be in quotes. So it's going to be a quote P, and then a dot. Now this could all be in one area if you wanted to. And so in other words, you could do this. You could keep it like that, and you don't even need spaces in here. You could do that for the first one. And because you have one string and you're starting another, that means you should have a concatenating dot here. Because if you're closing your quotes, that means you're joining something else. So you should put a dot here. And then there's a dot, and then we're starting a new P. Now, because we have variables in here, we have to use the dot. So now we're starting off with a paragraph tag, but in quotes, and then a dot, and then our PHP code, and then a dot, and then our break in a code, and then a dot because we have another variable. And notice everyone's ending in a dot. So that's the way it should look. You know, you could really do this if this would make life easier. If it looked a little nicer, you could do something like that, because that way this is a paragraph with a dot, then this is an opening paragraph with a dot, and you're finishing it down here. So that looks a little cleaner, I think. And make sure you finish this off with a semicolon. And if you have any extra space here, you could bring this stuff up. We only have one echo statement here, so that looks okay. And everything's in our PHP, so there's not a lot of PHP here. We just got rid of the stuff that was displaying, and we just kept the insert stuff. So this is all the insert stuff that we kept here. And we'll figure out what we're going to do with the display 13, but for now, we'll save this, and we'll go back to index, because one thing we are going to change in index, instead of display 13, this is going to go to thank you. And this is important to do this, or else it'll just go to the other page. So now this is going to redirect it so it goes to the thank you page. So if someone inserts their information, they're not going to see the database. They're just going to see what they put in. So I'll save this, and I'll check it out. I'll go back, and I'll refresh this. And I'll put in Steve Austin, and he's S. Austin. And they can rebuild me. That's a 70s reference to the $6 Million Man. And Facebook, we'll put him there. And we'll hopefully add him to the list. And this should take us to the thank you page. And we'll see how that looks. But it should still add us to the database. So let's hit submit. And it says, thank you for submitting contact info. Connected to contacts. New record created successfully. So that's great. Let's see. And there he is. He got added. The only problem is, this is the info you submitted. We don't see anything here. So let's check this out, what we did. All right, I figured it out. I was looking at this and I'm thinking, we're not using rows, because that was actually with the while loop. So what this should be here, and this isn't hard to fix, but I'm sorry for steering you wrong. This should really be the variable. That's all it needs, is the variable. It doesn't need that other stuff. It's just the variable, so I'm just going to put just the variable here. And I didn't check it yet, but I'm pretty confident that that's the reason it didn't work, because we're not doing anything that's generating a row. And we should have already gotten the variable from the form, so it's just displaying it. I think that's the way we did it on the original, like ex13 when we first did that. So that should be fine. So we should just be using the variables there. And I'll save that and hit the back button, and I'll refresh. Rex Rothman, and he's just saying it's Rex, and we'll put other here. I'm pretty confident that this is going to show the information on our page. Are you ready? Here we go. And there it is. There's Rex Rothman. This is the info you submitted. This is the new record created successfully, and let's just check if he was added to the list. We'll refresh this, And there he is. There's Rex. He's added to the list. So everything looks okay. So if that's working, you should be in good shape as long as it's showing that information there and as long as it's showing the new information there. And I think I forgot to save it or something. First time I did it, I got an error, but I went back, I checked everything, and I didn't have any errors. So everything's okay in here unless I just didn't save it correctly. One thing just to keep in mind that if you did go to display, and before I even do this, let me just double check. I wouldn't want to have any of that insert stuff in here. So let's say I went to the display and I just wanted to see the information. I'd want to get rid of this insert stuff. So I'd want to get rid of this insert and new record and all this kind of stuff. I'd want to get rid of this whole section here. I'm just going to delete this out right now and I'll just see what happens. I'll save it and I'll just see what happens if I go back here. Here's my thank you, and if I, instead of looking at thankyou.php, if I look at display, we'll just see what happens here. Doesn't matter that much. We'll look at display13.php and just see what that page looks like. And there's Rex Rothman, so we could still see it. It's just that the user is not supposed to see that unless they typed in display13.php, but I'm sure there's some security that could be set up so they couldn't do that. Anyway, I think we're done with that, so that still works. So you can do that if you just want to be able to have a display page that you can check on your own, as well as the insert page and the thank you page. So everything looks okay. So I think what we could do here is I'm going to close this up and close up these files and close up them. So everything looks okay in ex13 with those 3 files. I'll go back here, and again, you could just mess around with these. You don't need that many in here. 4 or 5 is fine. If you want to add more, that's great. And once this is set up, all you can do is just go back here and log out, and you could close that up, and you could close this file up. And in here, I don't have any files open, so I'm going to go down here, and I'll just quit out of my SQL, and I'll close my container. And then what you could do is just put a message in ex13, just put a comment in there that you're finished. So that should be the last exercise before the final exam.